welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Season 10. It's been 10 seasons of empowering small businesses such as yourself and hand-holding and guiding you in your growth journey. I'm Sunanda Jayasheelan. Two very special conversations tonight. First up, we're talking about, is India and the Indian workplace really inclusive? That conversation with NCPEDP. Also, I'm talking about the social sector, I'm talking about giving back, I'm talking about philanthropy and CSR, all of that in conversation with Dasra, as we're of course in the middle of the festive season here in the country. First up, let me welcome Arman Ali of NCPEDP onto the show tonight. Arman, so good having you with us tonight. We've spoken with you previously, of course, talking about disability and really whether Indian companies and the Indian workplace really is inclusive. But it's always good to have these conversations and present these views to our viewers. So good having you with us. Before I move any further, I would love for you to talk to our viewers about your own journey and why you felt it was crucial to start working in the area of disability.
Thank you for having me on the Leaders of Tomorrow, Sunanda. I think it's an honor. I am Arman Ali. I am the Executive Director of National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People. We are a non-profit organization and we work in the area of education, employment, accessibility, and awareness, law, and youth with disability in the country. We are a research-based advocacy organization, more like a think tank, which is into policy change and creating awareness about rights of disabled people and engaging with various stakeholders to create inclusion for people with disabilities in all spheres of life.
As far as the sustainable development of India is concerned, why is it crucial for the inclusion of persons with disability, according to you, Arman?
Well, I think anything which is friendly for people with disabilities, it is friendly for all. And this pandemic, which we're just passing through, is a great example for all of us. All of a sudden, unplanned, we had a lockdown and we shifted work from home. Even this interview right now is one such example. So work from home is a reasonable accommodation thing. So anything which is designed to take along everybody and kept in mind the needs of people with disability. Because at some point of time, all of us as human beings do experience some disability or other, if not now due to some illness or disease or congenitally. For elderly people when they age, I think there is a lot of adjustment that one needs to do. So anything which is friendly, which is barrier-free in terms of access, is friendly for all. And if we do not create this friendly, disabled-friendly infrastructure or systems, will not be sustainable in long term to come. When I talk about the people with disability in India, we are not less than at least 100 million people in this country who are people with disabilities, and it's increasing by the day. And one cannot afford to leave behind, 10 crore people or 100 million people with disabilities in India. And India, when it is growing, when India is one of the leaders in the world globally, I think it's a huge opportunity in front of us to have this kind of a talent pool and number of people who will start contributing to the economy of this country.
As the Executive Director of India's largest organization when it comes to working with persons with disability, what are perhaps some of the biggest challenges that you see? Do you feel, first off, there are enough conversations happening, there is enough awareness really of what it means to be someone who is in the workplace today but is a person with disability?
I think the biggest challenge with the disability sector and people with disability is the lack of awareness about it. There's an acute lack of awareness about people with disabilities in general, about the issues that people with disabilities face on an everyday basis. And for organizations like ours, which is not running into services, but which is into policy work, which wants to create awareness about disability, which wants to work with government, private sector, businesses, and people with disabilities, academia, to create processes and policies which are inclusive of people with disabilities. We do face a lot of challenge because disability is traditionally looked at as a charity and a welfare issue, which where one believes in providing support in terms of various services to people with disabilities. I think that is also important, but what will be sustainable, and so which will make people with disabilities independent, is making them empowered with education, with employment, with ability to freely move around wherever they want to go. So the challenges is to understanding the needs. I think the needs of people with disabilities are not different than any other human being. They also need education. People with disability also need employment. People with disability also want to have the freedom of movement from one place to another in any in a set of environment, whether it is by a public transport, whether it is by an aeroplane or water transport, railways, and so on and so forth. So I think one, considering people with disabilities as people first, and not looking at their needs as something which is different from the people is need to be understood. And disabled people needs to be looked at people who can contribute and not as a burden.
What do you feel Indian companies and workplaces should do when it comes to, the inclusion that we've been talking about, the aspect of inclusion? What should be done?
I think two things. One, any entrepreneur who is willing to include people with disability into their businesses must look at one should be equal opportunity employer. One should not discriminate a person with disability basis on their disability, and should encourage people with disability to come in their workforce. That's one. And two, whatever product, services, or business they do, they should keep in mind that people with disabilities are also their clients or customers. So making their product, services, or whatever they do, friendly for people with disabilities is one. A lot of times we misunderstand about job opportunities for people with disabilities or employment, even self-employment. There is a lot of people with disabilities who are into entrepreneurship, who are self-employed, but there aren't enough opportunities for them. They don't find a platform where they can, they can make use of their ideas or explore the market equally as any other entrepreneur of their credibility. But for anybody who is into business must consider making people with disabilities part of it. And I think if we do not include people with disabilities, such organizations or companies would not cease to exist in the next 25 years.
I want to talk about the pandemic, and that's, you briefly touched upon that. I just really want to continue that point forward and talk about the fact that a lot of people, of course, unfortunately lost jobs. What has been the impact on persons with disabilities? If you can give us the big picture, one. And two, since a lot of the training, a lot of work has moved online, has it perhaps become easier or more difficult for persons with disabilities to upskill and reskill themselves and receive this kind of training online?
It's a yes and a no, Sunanda. It's the digital divide which we have in our country, which exists. It makes easy for some people, and it makes extremely difficult for certain, category of people who come from lesser privileged background or people who are in the rural areas. And people with disabilities have this need which is to do with accessibility. Now, I have a locomotor disability. I use a wheelchair, so I'm able to access an online thing. But people who are blind, people who have deaf or have multiple disability, find it very difficult to access online training sessions or meetings or work, which is not made accessible to them. So there are these challenges. There are initiatives in the country which is working on making such information and training accessible for people with disabilities. But I think there's a good start, but there are a lot more can happen. And I think technology can really change lives of people with disabilities if we use technology in a true sense of it across the country, keeping in mind the need of disabled people. It's a game changer. It's a complete spectrum of things which can happen, and with technology coming into play in the last 2.5 years, it's been phenomenal for many sectors. I think disabled people are definitely part of it, but more people can join if there are efforts to take everybody in.
All right, Arman, such a pleasure as always chatting with you. Thanks for your time. I'll slip into a short break. On the other side, we're talking all things philanthropy, CSR and giving back for entrepreneurs such as yourself. I'm in conversation with two very special women. That's coming up in just a moment. Do stay tuned. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Tonight, I'm doing a very special conversation, something that we unfortunately don't do enough here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, but something that's very crucial. Talking about giving back, talking about philanthropy and CSR. Our second conversation tonight is with two very special women who are leading the change when it comes to giving back. Why is it crucial to give back? What should you as India's small business owner know about giving back? All of that in this conversation. Listen in. So good having the both of you with us here. Tara, Neera, talking about something which is very crucial and very important for entrepreneurs, and as important as it is for businesses to make money, it's also about how you are spending that money, and one part of it is of course how you're giving back and giving back to society. Before we talk about really family philanthropies, what's happening in India, come to some of the statistics, I want to talk about giving back and really understand from both of you, and maybe I can come to you on this first, Tara, what the initiative is, why is it so important, and what really is happening.
Sure. So Neera and I have been friends actually for quite a few years, and Neera was instrumental in changing the way I thought about giving and putting the word and the term of philanthropy to it. Because most of us think of philanthropy as this very sort of large game that we have to play, and it's not. And the Dasra team simplified it for me almost 5-6 years ago, saying it can be any shape, any form, any quantity, it can even be your time. And so we, over the years, did some really fun stuff together, and Neera then came up with the brainchild of wanting to create a network of philanthropists who in their own time, their own space, their own domains were already giving, and that it would just be a platform to create a dialogue and narrative around philanthropy as a whole. And I'm just going to ask Neera to embellish this because it's her baby, and I'm a supporting massive supporting cheerleader to this, but that's the genesis of it essentially.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's quite simple, and we could have never started without having the support of Tara and other philanthropists. So it's very much a network by families for families, and it's really come from a place of recognizing that there's families who engage in philanthropy, and sometimes that can get confused with CSR and corporate giving or other types of giving, but being a unit as a family is a very important unit. It's values-based, and to be able to make a change, especially looking at accelerating the kind of social change we need in India, to have families be deeply value-based and applying that to philanthropy we see as a real opportunity. And Giving Pie really is just an India Family Philanthropy Network. It's about inviting families to be part of a movement where they're thinking about their giving, they want to give more, where can they give? And ultimately we see this as a network where there's a willingness to learn and collaborate, so that families aren't maybe replicating things, or they can come together and be able to do things is one part. I think another part is to bring some transparency. Where are families giving? What are the kinds of things they're giving to? We're seeing more and more innovation happening from the family giving side, because you can take more risk with that kind of capital. So philanthropy ultimately is a kind of capital. That's how we look at it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And when you're saying families, you're not talking any families, you're talking billionaire families, of course, right, as part of Giving Pie?
Yeah, it is a certain level of, I suppose, wealth, and but it's more really around how much one is giving. So we've said you need to be giving at least 50 lakhs a year as a minimum, and it can be to any cause as the base. But the kinds of families that are now coming into the network are giving a wide range from 10 crores, 20 crores, 5 crores. So it's less about the quantum, but we are trying to have a certain amount there, and we want to be able to track this pie, right? That's why it's called Giving Pie.
Yeah.
Is it growing over time?
Sure. And the reason I brought that up is I just want to read some statistics. This is also partly based on a report that Dasra has put out, where you said India has 130 billionaires, and this is expected to grow exponentially over the next 5 years. And I was quite interested and quite impressed to see the figures. And that right now, family philanthropy could generate a corpus of nearly 60,000 to 100 lakh crores, particularly for the development sector in the country. Are you happy with the kind of figures that you're seeing when you're talking to, you know, India's most well-established families in terms of just how much, either at a group level or an individual level, that they're giving back to society?
So I think I'm excited by the potential, and there's so much more that can be given. In fact, I think we can surpass CSR, and so much of CSR is celebrated as very valuable philanthropy, but I believe that family philanthropy can actually move to these numbers, but there needs to be a lot more channels and support for that to be unlocked. A lot more trust needs to be in the development sector and connections made for that to be unlocked. So what we're very keen is that other organizations come in and support families, maybe Dasra, maybe others, to actually reach that 60,000, 100,000. It is quite an increase in a percentage of wealth if one uses that as some indicator of giving. We actually have a ways to go for India. But what's promising is families want to, and I believe that this network and having leadership and influence of individuals and families like Tara is really incredible to kind of build that movement.
Sure.
I will add, though, if I may, that I think that, again, and in a way, coming back to what I said, I don't think you have to be a billionaire to be a philanthropist. I think it's a choice that you make of the money that you have liquid and that you earn. There are philanthropists who give a lot who are not billionaires because they choose to spend their money in philanthropy versus other things. So I think that it is about the psyche of philanthropy and giving, and not necessarily your ability to give and to write checks and to deploy those funds in philanthropy. And I think that is what the Giving Pie will hopefully start to celebrate and nudge people. So I think when you have networks that talk about it and make it easier to do, and it's not so difficult to think of how to give and where to give, and it's not, it's prestigious to give, not necessarily prestigious to have a lot. I think that will start to make a bit of a change in the entire space of giving.
It's interesting you say that, Tara, because, you know, my next question to you was, is it crucial and important for billionaires who are giving back, for people who are in the public eye to be giving back and talking about giving back? Because India traditionally has been a country which is shy about talking about how much money you're making, shy about talking about the causes that you're supporting, whereas, for instance, in the US you have the Giving Pledge, and billionaires there feel it's important to talk about it because you're perhaps inspiring someone to also do the same. Do you feel it's important to really publicly talk about this?
Absolutely. I think you have to wear it with a badge of honor. It has to be something people look up to. and learn from each other. I mean, that's how businesses are built. You would always go and talk about your business, and you would share ideas about your business, and you would share challenges about your business, and you would use networks to support you to grow or get, change your perspective and your worldview on business or family life or relationships. So the same lens and same organized way of existence for philanthropy has to start coming into the forefront if we generally want to see systems change. And this concept of, I pay my taxes and the government should be doing it all, no society developed first world, second world, third world exists, which is utopia, where the government and your taxes are taking care of every need in that society. So I think it's time we put the why do we have to do this aside and start thinking about the how and the what that's going to be done, and definitely should be shouting from the rooftops.
Sure.
For the right reasons, of course.
But it's cultural too. I think it's taken time for culturally to realize that there's benefits, and that if you are talking about the impact and the change you want to see with a level of humility, we've found that that is a better way that we enter into how we talk about our giving in India, rather than looking. The giving pledge is a bit different. I think it's a little bit more people have pledged. And you become part of this group, but there's a real question of where did that giving even happen, and did it really go? And so you're almost pledging to be part of a society and a club, but ultimately what it needs to move to is, what did that pledge have an impact on? And that's really what we're excited about. The giving pie is in fact impact led.
You were saying CSR, so I just want to go back to that. CSR and philanthropy, according to you, are interlinked?
Of course, so in my mind, philanthropy is just a type of capital. As in, you're giving grant money, you don't expect any monetary value back. And the way that these operating models is, there's no profitability at the end. So in my mind, philanthropy is just that form of capital. CSR is a form of philanthropy that comes from the profits of a company that has a mandate. It's almost like a tax, to be honest. Family philanthropy is discretionary, right? It's voluntary. It can take a bit more risk than CSR. So they're both philanthropy, but different types of philanthropy.
Yeah, and that, I want you to pick up on that and really talk about, she was saying mandate, it's almost a mandate. Do you think that model is working well in India, for corporate India to have this mandate to say, give this percentage back?
I think we have a way to go in really making that mandate efficient and put to good use. But I've seen it in my context. It was because I had CSR as the capital I could deploy as philanthropy that really helped my trajectory personally change. And what we do as a family is we then supplement that CSR kitty as personal philanthropy, because then you can organize those resources so much better rather than fragment them. And we go above the 2% mandate. So clearly I have high convincing powers where I go to our CSR committees. I do the pitching. I'm the managing trustee of our foundation. Okay. I could have my team do it, but I do it.
Okay.
And I show the path and the impact that we're making and the way in which we're monitoring and deploying the funds that we do.
Out of time on this very special episode, but if you have any feedback for us and you want to hear any more such highlights and trends, do let us know. Our details are on your screens as we speak. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.